If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans. Even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes. Now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox. Clean feels good.
Welcome to another Finely Edged production for the Premier League Cricket Club. Connecting players and coaches, clubs and leagues, volunteers and supporters alike, you're in the right place for the best of the 33 ECB Premier Leagues and the 20 NCCA counties, bringing you the stories, the stats and the standout performances that make this game great. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to both our Premier League and NCCA shows so you don't miss any episodes. Now, shall we get stuck in? So welcome everybody to the National Counties Cricket Show, and it's been a while, but it's that time again where we go and talk to Mr. Richard Logan and say, how are we doing, Richard?
Yeah, very good, thanks. It's good to be here, and I'd say it's been a nice quiet couple of months, but since the end of the season, but it hasn't been, and it never seems to be anymore. But yeah, all good, all loads of positive stuffs on reflection of the season and. Fully into planning for next year already. So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's one of those strange ones, isn't it, where people who aren't in and around the game always think that the season ends and, you must have time off. You, like me, this is just the busiest time of the year, isn't it? It's almost easier when the season comes around.
It is actually sometimes, because then you feel like you don't want to ask counties for too much because they're all busy actually delivering the cricket, so it eases down a little bit, but not really. It's a full sort of 12-month program now. I did get away for a few days at the end of the season. In fact, the day after the championship final, I disappeared for a few days, but that was my one of our friends' 40th birthday. But other than that, it's been pretty full on.
And let's look back at that season. Am I right in saying it really couldn't have gone much better, could it? The weather, just all the way through the season. Did we actually lose any games in the end? I can't remember looking at it now.
I think we did, but only in comparison to the previous two or 3 years. It was just brilliant. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? You reflect on the year. It was a really good year, but I think our mindset is what can we improve. What can we change? What can we tinker with to get even better? And that's certainly our mindset. So, yeah, absolutely. It was great. The weather certainly helps, albeit I think that brings its own challenges as well. Certainly some of the groundsmen around the country, that can bring its challenges. But as I say, I think every time we talk at this time of year, a massive thank you to everybody that's involved in our cricket, because we know how much time and effort and resources it takes to do that. And certainly no less than all the host clubs that we play at, really. And this year was, albeit you're not pulling on the covers every 5 or 10 overs, but you've got different challenges to sort of overcome with the weather. But we missed a little bit, but in comparison, it was nothing compared to the previous couple of years.
Absolutely. And looking back at the season, I believe personally, and I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, that the top 3 sides this year effectively won the 3 trophies. Dorset were outstanding in the 50 over, and we had the hottest day of the bloody year at the final at Chester Boughton Hall. Norfolk been very close and thereabouts for a number of years, but winning the T20 at Wormsley. And then Buckinghamshire, they dominated, I think, in the end, the best way to put it, when it came to that championship final. It was a really good win for them. They just seem to be, consistency-wise, the three best sides in the country.
Yes, yes and no. I'd agree with all those things that you've said, because they are absolutely true. Obviously, Norfolk have done well in the last couple of years in two of the white ball competitions. Dorset have had an absolutely brilliant year, losing finalists in the T20, winning the one-day comp, and doing well in the championship. So, and Bucks have been in and around the final for the last 2 or 3 years. So you're absolutely right. What we did introduce this year for the first time, and that's the only reason I say it's not entirely true, is a format in which we actually monitored the
MVP for teams, basically.
Yeah, so we had a point system in place that goes across all 3 competitions. You accumulate points for various different things, winning games, where you finish in each of the groups, and then we put all those into a table where we get we get the best performing county, and Dorset did sit at the top of that table. Yeah, unsurprisingly, really, having got to 2 finals. Berkshire were in and around again, because they are pretty steady performers, albeit they didn't get any silverware this year. Buckinghamshire, Northumberland and Cambridgeshire are all around the top there. Suffolk and Norfolk sort of make up that top 6 or 8 counties. Yeah. So absolutely, but I think sometimes when you look at the whole season, there's a couple of other counties that really perform well throughout the year as well, that sort of go into the mix of those 3. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're performance cricket, and you're judged on the silverware at the end of the year. Certainly as one of the contributing factors to a successful season. So yeah, those 3 certainly go into that conversation, and I think Dorset being the standout team of the year, really.
Yeah, and I'm 100% behind that. I think the team that were unlucky were Northumberland a couple of times. They're 3 of the top 10 bowlers in the NCCA this year, 2 of the top 10 batters. Berkshire, strong as always with the batting side in particular. But just something clicked for Dorset this season, didn't it? Both on and off the pitch, it all seemed to come together nicely. And such a young squad as well, led by Luke Webb.
Yeah, and I think I know that you've spoken to Webby quite a lot, and we have Webby on our cricket committee because he's a great bloke to begin with, and he's a very good cricketer and a superb leader. We've seen that at the ECC a few years ago, when, although obviously Links has been our captain out there, Webby was incredibly influential on and off the field, and more so off the field, really, with that sort of leadership style, that natural leadership style that he's got. So it's no surprise when he kind of galvanizes his troops, so to speak. And I think when you win the one-day comp, bearing in mind the final was quite early this year, it does really give you impetus to sort of kick on. And I think it's they were certainly one of the early adopters, having spoken to Webby and a few other people at Dorset, in sort of tracking the overall leader and going, actually, every single game's really important here, because we can accumulate points to come out on top of that overall leaderboard. I think other people have absolutely engaged with that, but maybe not as early as Dorset did, and they really use that as sort of motivation for the whole season. But yeah, no surprise that they've come through. They've got some real quality. I think Finn Gordon was our T20 MVP. And he's a really good talent. Not to really pick people out, because they've got a whole team full of talented players.
Absolutely.
As of a lot of the other counties, but he sort of comes out at the top of the T20 MVP list, so worth a mention for sure.
Yeah, and then you got the likes of Dylan Church, Will Tripconey there in the batting side, Mo Abbas, Joe Carson's come through as that speedster, and Connor Smith was, let's be honest, Connor Smith would have won the bowling for the NCCA in most years if it wasn't for Connor Haddow and his 8,000 wickets that he took during the season again. I think I saw Connor took 140 wickets across all forms of cricket last year. Do you think that Dorset have changed something there as a county in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, where they've completely changed the model within what they're doing, and that youth that's coming through is quite significant, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that sometimes when you make changes or when you focus on a certain area, you don't get immediate results. You've got to be patient. You've got to stick with it, and if you believe in that process, I think there's having a bit of a personnel change in the sort of backroom staff, so to speak, as well. And I think that's been a really positive thing. And the person that's come in, Andy Coleman's made a really positive impact on the whole county. So I think those things drip down, don't they? If everything's sort of coming from the top and it's really positive, the fact that they've invested in younger players. I know Gareth Berg is now involved there.
Yeah.
Sid Lawrence has been there for a few years. So there's an element of continuity and trust around the sort of backroom staff that they've got. So I think that all comes out on the pitch as well, and that they've had that consistent leadership from Webby. So yeah, it just seems to be that it's going to be their time now for a little bit, and it's certainly going to take some good efforts from all the other counties to not necessarily catch up with them, but I'd say that, and don't get me wrong, that they're not necessarily knocking Berkshire off a perch. It takes a bit more to knock somebody off a perch when they've been on it for a substantial amount of time. So, but it certainly looks positive, and I think that competition amongst the teams that we've mentioned, and a few, like we haven't even mentioned Staffordshire and Cheshire and Devon, who've got to the final of the Championship 2 out of the last 3 years. So there's so many counties that are vying for places now, and Northumberland are at the top of that list because they've been promoted as well and done really well. So as a feature, so you go across and it's really tricky. If I didn't have it in black and white in front of me on the screen here, I'd find it really difficult to pull out any county that was really leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. So which is great for our cricket.
Exactly, and I was going to say that I think what we did see this year across almost all of the competitions was there was hardly ever a game where you just went, oh, that's just they were bloody great games all across the competitions, 50 over T20 and the Championship. It was regularly week in, week out. The Championship, there were games going down to the last hour again, in proper Red Bull cricket. The competitiveness across the 20 counties just seems to be getting better and better.
Yeah, and it's funny because one of the things that I've come up in conversation a lot over the last couple of months reviewing the year was the volume of draws that we had in the Championship. However, you need to know the context around that.
Look behind the scores,
100%, because the context of 2 of those games had Staffordshire in, and they both went to literally the last ball. So, although that's a draw, that is a hell of a game of cricket, and you're not going to worry about playing in that game or watching that game of cricket. It's captivating, and I remember sitting watching the live stream of both of those games,
and me
completely glued to it. So I think, you can look at that in one regard, but also we had a lot of really good weather. Actually, a few of our 3-day games were hampered by rain, so that takes a little bit of time out of the game. So all these factors, I think, on the whole, though, as you've said, lots and lots of competitive cricket. The way that we've structured the competitions and the way that you can progress through now with 3 teams going through in the T20, the promotion and relegation in the Championship, there are very, very few dead rubbers, which is one of the things that we've tried to make sure there isn't. And I think even if there was a game that you couldn't get promoted or you couldn't get through to the next round, you've still got the points to accumulate for the overall Championship. So actually, there shouldn't really be a dead game at all, which is brilliant because you want to keep that competitive element going through every single game of every competition from start to finish. So hopefully, we're certainly getting there with that, and it feels like our structure is really good now, and the weather always helps that stuff. I think one thing to add into that, we changed the one down the T20 around this year.
I was going to ask to come to that. Do you think that made a difference this year? I know we were lucky with the weather as well, but do you think that made a significant difference in the quality of the cricket we got then?
Yes, I think so. One of the contributing factors was the weather, and actually that didn't really come into play. Certainly not for the 1-day or the T20 stuff. I think we actually lost more cricket in the first day of the previous year than we did in most of the whole season. So it's difficult to really compare those things. But having the T20 in the middle of the year, longer days, better wickets, the scores were 175 plus, whereas previously we've been sort of scraping to 98 or 105. Yeah. Again, weather's a contributing factor to that at the start of the year, but that was the aim. That was part of the thinking behind putting the T20 in the middle of the year, and we definitely got the results of that. We just benefited from some better wickets and better weather at the start for the 1-day competition as well. So that was a bit of a bonus, really.
Yeah, and you can't win them all, can you? I mean, the final, the trophy, two scores under 200, but really competitive match, even though it was one of the hottest days of the bloody year that we had all year, and the pitch was baked hard. But then you go to Wormsley for the T20 finals, which is a great venue for that sort of day, and you got the scores of the 160s and 170s. I was at Wormsley a couple of weeks later for the National Club T20 final, and everyone's there saying 130, 140 pitch, and I just went, no. Look what the NCCA boys scored 3 weeks previously, and then you get a feel for what's there, because the runs were in there, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. And to Chesterbourne Hall to begin with, that was like the really hot spell of the year, wasn't it? And I remember going down. I always go up the day before, as most of the teams do. They travel up, and I went to the ground just to have a look around, and I caught the end of the Chester game that was there. And I remember stood outside watching that game, and I had to go inside after about 10 minutes because it was so hot. And like you said, the Sunday was really hot as well, and that's contributing to the wicket being a bit tricky because it took a bit of turn. So, but it was as you said, it was still a pretty captivating game. T20 stuff, absolutely, and I think on reflection, the teams that went probably could have played slightly differently from a cricket perspective. I think a lot of the teams were. I think the team batting first won all 3 games, if I remember rightly, and actually chasing those games. For me, the focus should have been on getting 2s. Rather than trying to hit 4s and 6s, because we played on a really big pitch. And the way we progressed through the day, the team that did that best won the day. And won it relatively comfortably in the end, because they'd managed to get up to those good scores. Pressure was on. People then tried to hit their way out of it, and it didn't work because it's a big ground. So it's both had equal excitement to them, I think, but were also a pretty interesting and different test. But yeah, like you said, there were 160, 170 on each of the T20 games, which is great, really.
And looking forward to next season, we're going to keep that format. We're going to keep the 50 over early doors into the T20 later on. Yeah. I think even if it wasn't as successful as I'm probably saying I thought it was, I think we'd stick with it, because we don't want to make a knee jerk sort of reaction to something, or we need to have a couple of years of data, I suppose, or certainly to look back on. But I don't see it changing back anytime soon. Again, there's lots of different things we have to look at. The first class structure and what that looks like, and we need to take that into consideration. Not that we would if it changed massively, because I'm not sure that has such a big impact as probably I may have thought 3 or 4 years ago. So you live and you learn through these things, and but I think at the moment we're definitely keeping it. Well, I know we're keeping it the way it is because the fixtures have been confirmed for next year, and then we'll obviously review that at the end of next season. But for me, I really like it. But we'll see how next year goes and see what the feedback is from the players and the counties. Yeah, and I think if you go back a couple of years, we had the T20 first up before the 50, the idea being that some of the first-class players who are going to drop down, play for their national county, get ready for the blast, etc. But actually, we saw it happening this year anyway in the 50 over. I use Jake Lintott as the example. He dropped down, played 50 over cricket for Wiltshire, and then he goes back in and plays for Warwickshire in the T20.
Yeah, and I think white ball cricket's white ball cricket. I know it's a little bit different, but playing cricket's playing cricket, and if you're playing with a white ball or even a red ball, if you're spending time at the crease, or you're getting some balls under your belt in a pressurised situation in a game, I think that's good preparation either way. So I think whichever format we have first or second is still beneficial. We'll still have players coming down and playing in our cricket, because the ones that have done it previously see the huge value in it, and they'll continue to do it. And it's great for our cricket because it raises the standard a little bit. But I personally don't think our standard needs to be raised too much anyway. We always want to get it better, but it is super high anyway.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that lends itself to that is the competitive nature of the way we have the tournament set up with the 50, the T20, the Championship. But I'm going to ask you a slightly controversial question. Do you think that sort of... I think that works really well to create that competitiveness across the counties. And as you say, I can't think of a single dead rubber in any game. Even if there was a game where somebody was knocked out already, they were playing an opponent who still had something to play for. Now, you compare that to the first-class game and towards the end of a season, well, let's be honest, there's county championship games going on where you might as well call it a draw from the start. Do you think that lends itself to, we are more competitive at the end of the day, aren't we, the NCCA?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think not that we've obviously we take note of what's going on in the professional game because we want to ensure that our players who've got aspirations to step up
Yeah.
are well prepared and they're playing the right kind of cricket around the right time. However, I think, as I've said a minute ago, what I've learned in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years is that we just need to focus on what we do and do it as well as we can and make sure that we are as competitive as possible across our formats and across the way we play and the way that we structure our competitions. And I think we're getting to a stage now where we've got a really good structure. We don't have any of those dead rubbers. So it means that every single game is competitive, and we've got the personal MVP, we've got the county overall leader now. So hopefully everybody's got something to play for, in addition to just winning a cricket match and progressing through a competition as well. So it's I'm really, really happy with the way things have gone and the structure that we've got, and we can compare ourselves to the first class. It's probably one for another conversation over maybe a slightly more social occasion than this, but it's. Yeah, there's been lots of proposed changes, hasn't there, to the first class stuff, and not huge amounts change, which I appreciate is difficult when you got 18 different stakeholders and get anything through that's impacting. But it's a tricky one. I've got an opinion, but I don't. I've also learned that my opinion doesn't necessarily need to be broadcast sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, my opinion, dead simple. The format they were looking at first class, where they were going to split into 3 groups of 6 across the 18 counties for the red ball, that would mirror effectively what we have across the NCCA with our smaller groups in the championship. And you do then ultimately get far more competitive nature than having 10 and 8 in a league, and that's where I was coming from with that. I think we've got it set up right. We also have the limitations in the NCCA compared to the first class of A, time, and B, money, because the lads who are playing that red ball games in August, they're all working and they've all got a day-to-day job, haven't they, most of them? Yeah,
absolutely. So they're the sort of really big noticeable changes, aren't they? But it doesn't mean that our players want to win the games any less.
Absolutely.
And when they're sacrificing work and they're giving up things, that they do it because they really love it, and that makes them ultra competitive, I think, as well.
How pleased have you been this year with the overall sort of context of the way the counties have developed their marketing and their streaming? Because that was something at the beginning of the season, and that was very key to growing the national counties.
Yeah, really happy with it. And we met with the members last week and the counties, and the figures show that we've done a really good job on that, and the counties have done a great job because, again, it's one of those things, it's added resource, it's putting cameras up, it's taking cameras to games. So we've been working on quite a long-term strategy, really, with regards to live streaming. It's getting a few people in doing it to begin with, and we're going back 5 years now. Whereas this year, all of our white ball games were covered. It will take a few little technical issues, but from a perspective of everybody trying to do it. And then we had a few games that were covered by 2 cameras. So every county's got a camera. So we asked where counties could to take them to away games, set them up. So you then get to see, when you go onto a stream, you see the bowler bowling from behind the bowler's arm, which is something I suppose you expect when you're watching cricket. That's something that we did this year, I think, in 30 out of our 92 games that we did in white ball cricket, which was a really great start. We're then going to try and continue that on to make sure all the white ball games are covered with 2 cameras. And then our next step is to introduce commentators to those games. So we did something at the one-day games where it was a relatively simple setup. So the 2 static cameras, and then we've got a bit of kit that we can plug into the laptops we use to score and live stream. And it enables a couple of people to talk through what's happening, which, again, is just the next thing that kind of people expect. Hopefully it will get the people who are watching more engaged, staying for longer, coming back. But our figures don't lie. So we had 115,000 views last year and over 200,000 this year. Obviously, that's still growing because it's on YouTube, so people go back and check it and look at it. But well over 200,000, which is great from an awareness perspective, and it's really good from a commercial perspective. So, really happy with the way that the counties are going with that. We'll continue to do more training this winter. Some of that will be focused on the commentary stuff, obviously. But but just continuing to make sure that people are comfortable with it, and people that aren't, we can help and we can support, because that's a big area. We need to make sure we're offering the right support for all the counties, because like I said, it's a big ask, and it can get quite technical at times, and if you don't have the relevant training, it become quite stressful. And that's the last thing we want.
Most definitely. And I think it just adds, as we said, we mentioned it earlier, the likes of me and you are sat there watching Staffordshire games go down to the last ball, because we're seeing what's cracking off there. And there's been a lot of times this year where red ball cricket in particular, the only red ball cricket you could watch at the time was the NCCA, because the first class counties weren't playing it as well. And that balances that out nicely in August for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And our live streaming of the 3-day games, although it's not something that we push so hard from a requirement perspective, because it takes greater bandwidth and everything. Pretty much all the counties do it. And actually, we normally say, well, can you collect the highlight packages of those games? But really, we've got to a stage organically where we're live streaming all those games. And like you said, both you and I were sat there watching it, gripped by, I think it was Staffordshire Cambridge or Staffordshire Lincoln. I can't remember which games it were, but I know it was Staffordshire for both of them. And obviously I dip in and out of all of the games throughout those 3 days for the weeks of the championship game, because there's not a huge amount of other cricket on. So I think it's been a really great thing to watch, the sort of advance and the amount of cricket that we can get on now, and hopefully we'll just keep moving forward and progressing it on year.
And what's next for NCCA then? We 2.5, 3 years ago when we started talking about this and building the streaming, building the marketing, building the brand effectively, where would you want to take it now in the next year, 2 years? I know you've had a sort of 5-year plan to look at this and sort of keep pushing it forward. What's the next step for you?
Well, I think certainly from a live streaming perspective, as I've just said there, I try and get as professional a production for each of our games as possible. Whether that leads to some kind of streaming deal or broadcast deal, whatever that looks like. Because for me, there's no reason why sort of a TNT shouldn't be looking at covering our finals. You're looking at some really, really high quality cricket. And I looked on there. I know it's the FA Cup, but the FA Cup was on, and it was the first round. It was on there last night or the night before, I think. So I think to really focus on 3 games in our 1-day final, maybe our championship final, and certainly our T20 finals day, there can be something that we can really be pushing to get on onto some channel somewhere. And then internally, if we can keep growing our audience for one, and keep growing how professional our production looks, then we can look at streaming services and how we can really propel that forward from 200,000 to, well, who knows what that figure could be.
Yeah, and I think you've just used a key word. There's the professionalisation of what we're doing as a whole. You could see that, I've said it before to you, 10 years ago, you'd have lots of over 35s and ex-cricketers, inverted commas, playing NCCA cricket, whereas now you've got a lot of bloody talented youngsters, to be frank. What you're watching out there is such a great game, and some of the best games of cricket. I said it the other week. The best game of cricket I saw all season was the trophy final at Chester Boughton Hall. Tremendous game from start to finish, all the way. Weather helps, obviously, but I think when you're doing that and you can then sell that product, and that's at the end of the day what we're doing, isn't it? Is selling that product to your sponsors, to your partners, and ultimately bringing more investment into NCCA cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the live streaming is a double hit for us, because it's the views that all of our counties get, and it's the views we get accumulatively together that we can talk to partners about. And we've had conversations this year over the last 6 months where we've got 2 or 3 new partners on board, and those conversations are a lot easier when you've got 200,000. We've
Absolutely.
hit over 1 million views or reach on our social media just this year from a marketing perspective as well. So we're selling data rather than the concept of what we do and who we are. And I think the brand's strong now, and it's growing. So and we've signed 3 sponsors. Clubberley have come on as our championship partner this year and been great. Dojo were involved in our T20 finals day, and again, like a payment provider that can help every single club. So they're really targeted to helping our host clubs as well. And then TUS, who are an energy provider, so they've literally just signed in the last few weeks. And again, we're trying to get partners that can sort of help the network as well, and go and help host clubs by saving money here or there, or doing energy reviews of their spend. So we've got some really good partners on board, and we continue to have conversations because we feel that we've got something really valuable to sort of sell into businesses now.
Yeah, it's a great product. There's no two ways about it. I go on about it to people constantly about August. If you want your Red Bull cricket fix, come and watch the NCCA, and it's free to watch. If you want to see it early doors, see it at 50 over, come and watch the NCCA, because there's a lot of Sunday cricket. We know that, but there's some really good quality. And I think the standards in particular. I mean, you've been there long enough now. The standards just keep going through the roof, don't they?
They do, and you said earlier that I think we've talked about this quite a lot, about the eligibility criteria of having young players, 8 young players, and homegrown players, and I think that's really embedded in now. We don't necessarily talk about that too much because it's kind of just like, well, that's what it is, and everyone has to have those players. We monitor it obviously because it's part of our rules, but it's not something that is a hot topic anymore because it's just what we do. But I think, so what that enables us is to get all that young talent in the team. What we can't forget is that young talent needs to be led by people. And I mentioned Webby earlier, and there's a number of people like him at counties in roles that are really vital as well, in that senior player. But we don't have many of them. We don't have a lot of them making up a whole team because you just can't do that now. So we know, and I've talked about this a lot, we know we need a balance of a couple of experienced players, the sort of bulk of that central age group making up the team, with a couple of your young guns coming in, making up, getting some experience to make sure that they can step into that middle role as people sort of move up and either retire or move into a senior position in the county. So again, I think that structure works, and I think the coaching teams and the counties are now buying into that and planning for it, rather than going, well, actually we've got 5 or 6 lads now that are going to get a year older, and it's going to mean that we can't play 2 of them or whatever. I think people have got that sort of succession planning in place to know that, well, actually, if those 3 guys are getting older, then we need an 18, 19-year-old lad to come in as well, and we've got him from our academy or him from our age groups. So I think it's a much more joined up approach now, both from us but also from all the counties as well.
Absolutely. And I think the easiest way to look at that, put the barometer out there, is how many players have played in first-class cricket, List A cricket this year, that have come through the NCCA. And it's got to be, we're pretty sure it's got to be close to record numbers, the amount that have actually been out there this year. Not just the ones who've come through the NCCA system, but ones who've actually played it this year and gone on to play List A at the same time.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we obviously aim to do every year, in support the counties to do that as well. So, and whether it be through the NCCA rep team a little while ago or the challengers now, we make sure that pathway is really clear. And I think Rory Hayden is one of the biggest standouts this year, signing a three-year contract. And you go back 2 or 3 years, and I think he'd just come off the Warwickshire Academy. He was into the Staffordshire system. He was playing a lot. He was working incredibly hard, and now he's got his just deserves, really. And he's come through the challenges bit as well. Hopefully we've supported him in that, and Staffordshire, I know, have supported him. So he's just one of many that have come through. Obviously Cash is still playing now. Zen's playing now. They're quite well established. I think we've got to monitor the guys that go up and then come back down again to make sure we can support them, because there's been a few over the last few years that have done that. But definitely the influx of players going into the pro game is like, I don't think anybody can argue the fact that we're not a really clear pathway now. I know that few people do argue it and maybe don't believe it, but it's just statistically proven. So it's a big part of what we do, and a big part of where we focus our attention.
It's statistically proven, and just look at the bloody names who are out there. Zen Malik, he comes under that list of in the last year, because it was actually post last season, wasn't it? It was November when he got his contract at Warwickshire. Now the guys at Warwickshire look at him as a first 11 squad player across all formats. Rory stepped up at Derbyshire, as you say, 3-year contract. Nikhil gone to
Sorry.
Surrey, Joe Pocklington at Notts. And I think one of the key things for me, Richard, is that we're not now talking about the smaller first-class counties. We're talking about the big boys, the ones who've got, let's be honest, the money, the members, the big test grounds. They're looking down at these pathways as well now, very closely, going, actually, because Surrey wasn't the most logical place for Nick Heel to go to, potentially. Warwickshire had a look at Rory, but he ended up at Derbyshire. They're all having a look now, aren't they?
Yeah, and on our doorstep down here, Andrew Neil's signed at Hampshire and done really, really well. So I'm sure we're going to miss a few names off, but I think it's the overview of that to say that actually our players are going in and making an impact at some of the bigger counties now. And you're exactly right. So it's great to see, and long may it continue, because there's certainly some talented players that haven't been picked up yet. That are going to be banging on people's doors, whether it's in next season or the season after. I know that for sure.
Most definitely. And talking of impact, it would be amiss of me not to mention the loss we've had in the last few weeks of, to me, one of the people who had one of the biggest impact around the NCCA, and Andy Carr at Staffordshire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I spoke to Tom Lambert, who went to Andy's funeral, and said there was so many people there, and there's been such an outpouring of love and support and respect for Andy from the whole national counties community and a lot of the recreational community as well. So it just goes to show what a great guy he was and what an impact he'd had in the world of cricket, not just in Staffordshire as well. So yeah, massive loss, but sad times.
It is, unfortunately, these things happen. Andy had an impact on me over the last couple of years around you guys in particular, not just because he's my local county, but he's just one of those guys that it didn't matter who you were. You could chat to him about cricket and you could just see his eyes light up when he was talking cricket, full stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I spoke to him quite a bit about the cricket stuff around Staffordshire. Obviously, it's relatively close to my heart, being a Staffordshire lad, but it was more around the sort of rep stuff and getting involved in him. Getting his opinion on players, because I really respected that and really valued his opinion. So it's a sad loss for Staffordshire, and obviously our thoughts go out to his family and everyone in Staffordshire.
Absolutely. So we're now in November. Fixtures are done, and I'm sure they'll be published very soon. It brings us a little bit closer to the season next year. What plans have you got between now and the start of 2026 season to put in place, or is it just more a case of same again, get ready, and fingers crossed for the weather, obviously?
Yeah, a little bit more of the same. The fixtures have been pretty much signed off now, and they'll be distributed to all the counties, and then we'll put them out in the public domain. Sometimes the counties beat me to that, so I'm sure they'll be. I'm sure they'll be in the public domain soon. We've obviously got our live streaming plan and making sure that we're talking to the counties about support, because that will be individual for each county as well. The training that we deliver for that, booking up venues, counties will be hot on that now. They've got up till Christmas to ideally do that, so we can then start booking the venues. Yeah, and it's kind of a bit of a domino effect of once one thing happens, another thing, and then it cracks onto another. So I'm focusing on all the final venues. There might be a few changes to those in the next few weeks that I can announce. We know that the T20 finals will be at Wormsley, but the other two we're talking to a couple of other counties, because I think it's good for us to move around a little bit. Yeah, that's certainly not to say anything about Chester Boughton Hall or West Bromwich Dartmouth, who've done a brilliant job in hosting our finals over the last few years. So yeah, that'll be announced over the next few weeks as well, if and when there are going to be changes and where they're going to be. But yeah, the T20 is at Wormsley again, which is good. So yeah, lots going on, as you can probably tell. I'll jump around a little bit when we talk about that, but
absolutely.
There's lots going on up till Christmas even, and then once we get into January, anybody who's in cricket knows that the season suddenly comes around before you even know it.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually seen one or two clubs starting their fitness work this week already. They've taken October off. They're starting to get going, which is great to see. It just gives you that little warm feeling, doesn't it? That it's a long way away, but actually it's on its way there. I want to close this show, though, with probably a slightly unusual way of looking at things, but I want to talk about a player in particular who was a record breaker at the end of last year. I mean, it would be wrong of us not to talk about the records that Conor Haddo broke in that final. I mean, Paul Bolton was very quick to bring up. It was SF Barnes from 19, God knows when. It was that performance in that final at West Bromwich Dartmouth was quite sensational, wasn't it?
It was, and I think it was a pretty just sort of conclusion for the year. I think you mentioned earlier the volume of wickets that Connor had got throughout the whole season. So it wasn't just like he'd come in the final and suddenly got a whole load of wickets. He'd done it consistently for club, for county, for challengers, across the whole season. And yeah, it's one of those that he's obviously played quite a bit of second 11 cricket last year as well, and it's will he be the next person to make a step up? And if he does, I have absolutely no doubt that he'd do really well. So yeah, he's had a fantastic year, and not just this year either. He's backed it up in previous years. He seems to. He's obviously got the skill that is the sort of kryptonite for national counties batters. It seems whenever you look at the leading bowlers at the end of the season, you've got 6 or 7 in the top 10 that are left arm spinners. As you mentioned, like Connor Smith has had a blinding year, but Joe Stewart from Northumberland is kind of coming to that mix as well, and there's a few others as well. So it's but yeah, going back to Connor, he's had an absolutely blinding year. So it's and like I said, it's been the consistency, I think, more than anything that's been impressive across formats and from the start to the end, and not only with Buckinghamshire but with High Wycombe and the other teams he's played for.
Absolutely. From my perspective, I look at it sort of slightly outside in and go, anyone who watches a record being broken that's been going for that long, and they won and they dominated that game on that final day, it's a pleasure to watch because that's what cricket's all about, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And it's a shame because it overshadows. It's not a shame because Connor completely deserves to have the limelight, but one of the Devon bowlers probably would have been close to breaking some records as well if Connor had played with Callum. So Callum bowled extremely well, and it was a left arm spinner off for the final. But it was great to watch, and it was like compelling viewing as well, just to see them sort of go against each other and how the two teams were trying to adapt about playing against each of the left arm spinners. So yeah, really well done to both of those guys. But like I said, I don't want to take the limelight away from Connor because it was an exceptional year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from my perspective, to say thanks to you, Richard, for everything again this year. Thanks to Paul Bolton for the work he does. The NCCA's reporting is just sensational. I've never known anyone get them out so bloody quick, to be frank, as well. He's done a phenomenal job. But the whole team around the NCCA, thanks for putting on some bloody good cricket, because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to echo those thanks as well, especially to Paul. He does a really good job. And I see him whenever I go to a game, he's there and he's tapping away. And at the end of the game, it seems like he's got 2 reports next to each other, and whichever wins, he just pings it off because he does get it done super quickly. And then obviously the guys, Els and Teddy, that work with me here, it's like everyone. We've got a really good team now, and we work really well and closely together to get all the coverage out on whether it be a press release that Paul's sending, to get that onto the website, to get it on social media. It all happens without me knowing it, which is good. So I think before we came on the call, we talked about delegation, didn't we? So
absolutely,
but it's good. It's a really streamlined process now, and hopefully that's a good thing. It means we can focus our attention on other areas, growing the live streaming, supporting the counties in any way we need to. So yeah, but I'd certainly like to echo the thanks to those guys as well, because they've put in a lot of effort this year.
Absolutely. Hey, great chatting as always, Richard. I'm sure we'll catch up early next year and talk pre-season. Never know, there might be 1 or 2 changes around the counties, whether it be coaches or 1 or 2 of the pros who get signed up. As we had George Thomas signed up last year, and then he didn't get to play because he went to Sussex. But you never know what's going to happen, do you?
No, you don't. I think there's a long, as you said, there's a lot of the winter to go, albeit it'll go quickly. But yeah, lots of things will happen, no doubt. So we should catch up before the season and see where we are.
Absolutely. All the best, mate. Have a good one, and thanks a lot.
Nice one. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us at the Premier League Cricket Club. We'll be back soon with more from the world of Premier League and NCCA cricket. But in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us wherever you get your socials. Or maybe check out our website, premierleaguecricket.co.uk, to stay updated. Until next time, have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.